I want to ask you about another debate, which is how much power should the federal government have? So there's a traditional thought amongst a lot of conservatives that we need to restore federalism. We need to, vest more power into local communities and less power into the federal government. But there's another line of thought, which is that the federal government should use its power to exert conservative political priorities. Whatever priority, whoever ends up being elected and managing that wish list. How is that debate, do you think, going?
Well, it's certainly true. I think what you're referring to is kind of this newfound willingness by right wingers to use government power for conservative ends, for conservative social priorities. And we see that in a couple of different ways. I mean, I'm sure there are some people that would like a federal ban on drag queen story hour. Now, I'm no fan of drag queen story hour, but is it really worth the time of the federal government to ban it at the federal level? I kind of don't think so. It seems like kind of a waste of time. But what your question gets at the matter of scale, which is so important. I think we hear a lot of the word democracy is a little bit of a shibboleth on the left. If I, as a conservative, wanted to make one point to my friends on the left, it would be that, it matters the scale of the democracy you're participating in. Your ability to have a meaningful voice at a town meeting in Vermont or at a county board meeting in Kansas is dramatically greater than the power you have voting in a national election, voting for president. Voting for president, you're 1 in 150 million votes, something like that. Voting for your town supervisor or something, that's an election you're going to be voting. Your share is much larger. Your amount of democratic power is much larger, and so in order for democracy to be meaningful, like that implies in order for democracy to be meaningful, it has to be at a human scale, and so we can't just use the word democracy and then pretend that this government, half of the people don't vote in federal elections anyway. I think it's a little bit of a mistake to think that federal or democracy at the federal level is the only kind that matters. Anyway, that was what I was trying to say.
Well, so I just make one follow-on point, and Jason, you can say this. I mentioned before, sometimes you hear people saying, well, we should break up the country maybe, like, because we can't agree. I'm like, baby, the country's already broken up. We got 50 different states. There's no reason to break it up. Just pick the state that matches your policy priorities. But that gets harder and harder when the federal government assumes more power over those priorities.